I courted her for about 9 months before we got married.
In this area, guns are nearly as commonplace as cars. Most locals get familiar with gun safety practically from birth, and incidents of gun violence are few and far between. It doesn't hurt that the population density, about 25 people per square mile, is among the lowest in the country.
Most of the patrol areas that we cover are in dirt roads, very rural. You get directions by going towards the end of the road, and there's a big cedar tree with a wide. You may turn right and go down this road or that road.
After happy and successful careers, Daryl and Shirley settled into a well-deserved retirement. On the afternoon of April 5th, 2017, Daryl went into town to play cards with old friends at the local senior center.
I asked her what she wanted to do for dinner that night. It was being Friday night. A lot of times we went out. And she said, well, why don't you bring home a bacon cheeseburger? So after cards, I went over to the restaurant and bought the bacon cheeseburger and come home.
Daryl got back about 5 o'clock. As he walked up to the house, he saw a sliding glass door was wide open. He wondered why. It was cold outside. As he stepped into the house, he got the answer.
When I come home, she was laying there on the floor. She was laying in a pool of blood. I just said, oh my God, oh my God.
Status emergency. I need an ambulance. Do you need an ambulance or does somebody else need an ambulance? Just come home, I found her on the floor. Lots of blood. Is she conscious? No. Okay, is she breathing? No, she's not. Okay, are you willing to do CPR? I don't think it's any good. It's too late, I think. I think it's too late.
Police and paramedics arrived to find a murder not often seen in rural Idaho. Shirley Ramey had been shot twice, at nearly point-blank range. There was no forced entry. At first glance, it appeared nothing had been stolen from the house. It was a murder with no apparent motive. After all, who could possibly have a reason to carry out an execution-style hit on a 78-year-old great-grandmother?
It was very, very strange. Shirley was an elderly lady. She was well-liked in the community. It didn't make a whole lot of sense.
We didn't have any enemies, especially Shirley. She didn't have anybody that she didn't like, you know. And it's the same way with me. I don't have any enemies, and I couldn't figure out who it was.
Neither could law enforcement. This murder had no apparent motive, no eyewitnesses, and very little evidence. As the shock of Shirley Ramey's murder rippled across her rural Idaho community, homicide investigators were faced with a crime scene nearly devoid of useful information.
The crime scene appeared to be very neat, orderly. It did not have the appearance that there had been a rummaging through, as you oftentimes would see in a home invasion, a burglary, a robbery. There was nothing that was astray.
The only thing apparently missing from the house was an old hunting rifle, a .308 caliber, and this definitely was not the murder weapon. Analysts knew this because about the only solid information at the scene were 2 shell casings found just feet from Shirley's body.
Those shell casings were both 9mm semi-auto shell casings with an RP stamped on them, Remington Peters. They had primer strikes that we recognized consistent with Glock. Most guns use a round firing pin. Glock uses more of a triangular shaped firing pin.
As for the killer being someone Shirley knew, given the lack of forced entry and the absence of a struggle, that seemed possible, even likely. But her husband Daryl, with a solid alibi, was immediately written off as a potential suspect. In fact, the Rameys were well known to local law enforcement for all of the right reasons and none of the wrong ones.
I knew Shirley and Daryl personally as we attended community events in Hope and East Hope.
Another clue leading investigators to believe Shirley might have known her killer was the remote location of her house.
The Rameys lived on Trestle Creek Road. It's only accessible for part of the year by automobile. A lot of the winter and into the spring, it is snowmobile only. So there are very few residences up that road.